This is the BBC World Service with Andrew Peach. Good to have your company in the newsroom. On the way in the next half hour, more from that service of remembrance for Queen Elizabeth at St Paul's Cathedral in London. More about the first address by King Charles as head of state. We'll get reaction to the death of the Queen from countries including Lebanon and Norway. And we'll learn more about Queen Elizabeth's legacy in sport, and in particular in her passion, horse racing. Please stay with us.
BBC News with Julie Candler. Britain's new King, Charles III, has given his first address to the nation since the death on Thursday of Queen Elizabeth. Speaking of his profound sorrow over the loss of his mother, the King said he wished to renew her promise of loyalty at the start of her reign. He pledged to serve with respect, honour and love. He conferred the titles of Prince and Princess of Wales on his eldest son William and his wife Catherine. The address was broadcast on national television, as well as to a congregation attending a service of prayer for the late Queen at St Paul's Cathedral in London. Earlier, large crowds welcomed King Charles outside Buckingham Palace on his return from Scotland. On a 15-minute walkabout, he shook hands with members of the public. Some sang "God Save the King." Events have taken place across the United Kingdom, with gun salutes and bells ringing out to mark the death of Queen Elizabeth. Streams of mourners have been paying their respects at royal residences. In other news, a Russian-backed official in occupied Ukraine has admitted that Ukrainian troops have scored a significant victory this week. Ukrainian troops are claimed to have advanced up to 50 kilometers into Russian-held territory. The Global Nuclear Agency has warned the situation at Ukraine's Russian-held Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant is increasingly precarious, with increased shelling making it unlikely that power could be restored. The head of the IAEA said the power infrastructure feeding the nearby city of Anaheim had been destroyed. And Colombia and Venezuela say they will reopen their border for cargo transport and flights later this month, after years of tensions over political and ideological differences. Colombia's new left-wing president, Gustavo Petro, said the move marked a step towards the normalization of relations. BBC News.
And this is Andrew Peach at the BBC World Service. We're talking about a day where many people continue to mark the death of Queen Elizabeth and to honour her life and reign, her contribution to Britain and the Commonwealth. But it was also the day King Charles returned from Scotland to London and started to greet his subjects. Our correspondent Naomi Grimley is with me here in the newsroom. Talk me through how King Charles was received, because it is a day of sadness, of mourning, but also of some degree of joy and celebration with a new king, and there was a mixture of emotions outside Buckingham Palace.
Absolutely. We saw him greeted by the crowds very affectionately. At one point, one woman reached up and gave him a peck on the cheek, which slightly made the detectives who follow him around look a little bit alarmed. But there was certainly a warm reception for him and shouts of "God Save the King," as everyone's learning that that phrase now has new words to it. He'll also have done himself no harm with the speech he's given in the last hour or so to the nation. It was a very well-structured speech. It had personal stuff in there about his mother. He addressed her at the end and talked about my dear, my darling mama, and wished that angels would help accompany her to her rest. But there were also interesting political bits in there. He said, "I know my life will change," a reference perhaps to not engaging so much in political issues and controversies, instead rising above politics as the new monarch.
Queen Elizabeth always made great player. What great help Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister when she came to the throne, was in helping her settle into the job. King Charles has got a Prime Minister who's been in the job for 3 days, and they met this afternoon.
They did indeed, but of course you could look at it another way, because King Charles has had this amazingly long apprenticeship. The longest in history as a king, so he knows an awful lot about the workings of state. Maybe he is going to provide the advice to Liz Truss, who after all was only appointed Prime Minister on Tuesday. It's been a roller coaster of a week for her. But he said in his speech, "I solemnly pledge myself in the remaining time that God grants me, which is a reference to the fact that he comes to the throne as an elderly monarch himself, who's seen an awful lot of political controversies in the meantime.
We talked a bit about the remembrance service at St Paul's Cathedral. Tomorrow there is the proclamation. What's that?
Yeah, this is the bit, if you like, that sounds rather medieval. We'll hear trumpeters trumpeting from St James's Palace and other venues, I have to say, around the capital. And this will be the moment that he is actually formally proclaimed king. It's also the meeting of the council, the accession council, which involves lots of privy councillors, so politicians past and present. About 200 of those will gather, including Liz Truss, the Prime Minister, and that will be the moment that he officially becomes king, even though, of course, already we are referring to him as the king because the monarchy is a constant presence.
And because of the change in